What is up guys, Wraec is here with a new video, and today I want to talk about the Fort Defense game mode, which is the new game mode that DH introduced with the recent update, and that, well, has stirred up quite some controversy in the recent times because people either really liked it or really hated it, I feel like. And I've now played it a decent bunch. I started off, I cleared every single Frontier Fort Chapter 1 stage at least one time. Didn't quite get all the stars here. There's mostly it's like killing the boss within the certain time frame that is required to. That is still missing for me. I played the trial mode a little bit up to wave 25 for now. Still have to advance that a little bit further. I've seen every single enemy in the game. And now I think I can tell you guys what I like and what I didn't like about this game. And maybe some other thoughts on that. So definitely stay tuned for that. First of all, let's start off with the things I like about the game mode. So for the things that I like about the game mode, I have to say the accessibility is quite nice. Basically every single person that plays Idle Heroes can go into this game mode and we all nearly start on the same foot. The only difference being the Transcendence hero. There is some advancement feature here where depending on the state of the hero, on the given Transcendence hero on your account, if you have him at 10 star, E5, etc., this one gets upgraded a little bit more, but it doesn't really matter too much because, like, even if you don't have the hero, well, you lose a little bit of attack, which is alright. It will be at 1 star. I think it will be like 3 attack less than I have, a little bit less HP, not too heavy, not too difficult to overcome of a burden. So basically everybody has the same starting parameters, and the thing is, you can see it right here: 209, 145, 273, 206, level 69 even, and so people from different levels can interact with it without any problem. That is quite nice. Then we have the loot. There is indeed a bunch of loot. We can look into the star winning machine. We can see there are some cores, some gems, some profit orbs, 2000 gems here. We have a skin chest, and all of this loot is free to play. It's easily accessible. You just have to play the game mode a bit. At one point you just have to progress trial mode, and if you progress everything far enough, you will get all of this loot, even get the avatar. And you look at that, there's even some flag chest here, some master toolboxes, an artifact chest, so a lot of good stuff. And beyond that, there's some of the most insane loot that we have in the game at the moment in the trial mode, which some people didn't even notice, because you can farm this. You can farm this trial mode. The trial mode is like the endless mode. Seems to have loot till wave 100 though. If you reach that, we don't really know what happens yet. I think nobody reached it yet. But usually you can, when you restart it after you failed, you can like start at every 10th level. So you can start at level 91, 81, etc., depending on where you last were before you failed. If you failed on like 96, you will start on 91. We don't know what happens if you start on level 100, but apparently, and I checked that yesterday and it works, seems like it works, you get all of the loot of like all of the boxes again. So once you start the game mode and you restart on a certain stage, let's say you cleared 98, failed there, restart on 91 and then clear till 96, you get all of those chests that are here, which are 10 in total, as we get one stage every second threshold, so you get 10 of those stages, 10 of those waves. So you can basically, because this costs 5 and you can buy 10 coins, get 40 of those boxes a day. And if you even consider all the gems that are in here, and if you consider like 90 gems, you will only pay 140 gems in total for the extra coins, 500 minus 360. So you pay 140 gems, and those chests include 2,500 stellar. And if you multiply 40 times 2,500, you get 100,000 stellar a day. And 100,000 stellar a day is not a small amount. I have like all of the game modes cleared that give you stellar, which are mostly in the Gate of the Void, Realms Gate. I smash Void Corruption 120 with Perfect Smash, we can see that here, gives you some stellar. And then we have like Void Vortex, Dominator is cleared, Void Arc, I get all of the cores, etc, etc. Void Campaign gives you stellar too. It all comes down to like 128,000 stellar per day that I get from all of those cleared game modes that I have on the highest difficulty, and cleared them there and cleared them consistently there. 128,000 stellar a day. You get 100,000 from Fantasy Arcade, which is insane. It's like 80% of that accessible to everybody for free and free to play and without the need of any heroes in this game. Which I mean, we can discuss if that is fair. That is another story. I don't want to get into that. If people get loot, I'm happy. Give them loot. It's all right. So it's 100k. It's an insane amount of loot. We take that as an upside. So, and that's about it with the things that are good. Because the rest I really didn't like, to be honest. So now for the stuff that is really bad about this game mode, in my opinion. First of all, we have to start with the kind of game that this is. This is like an RTS game, real-time strategy game. And the major difference to like a game that, like Idle Heroes that we play, is the way we interact with the game mode. Let's say, for example, I want to fight... Let's fight Ragnaru. No idea if he has a good team, it doesn't really matter for the sake of this. And then I use this team. And I have made every single decision to make this team, the way this team is designed. I've already made that. We have the little bit of comfort that formations give us, that I can now just select this and we can click fight and the fight will start. But now that we go into the gameplay and into playing this game, well, the moment this fight develops, I no longer take part of it. I no longer am in place of selecting which hero attacks and what happens at which time. In Idle Heroes, all of our decisions are made before the gameplay even starts. So the gameplay really is more of a strategic one. We think about the things that we want to have happen in the game, or that should happen in the game or in a fight. Like when I now obviously destroy Ragnaru, just joking, he's a good guy. Then all of the things that led to this were selected before this fight even started. And this is an entirely different thing to an RTS like this. Well, kind of tower defense mode. It's kind of a tower defense mode, but it's with minions. Usually tower defense modes have like towers that you upgrade, or heroes that you upgrade that have a certain role, which is not the case for Fantasy Arcade. We have spammy heroes. A little bit, I just call it an RTS, which is the general category. Now we have to really, well, act during the fight, which is an entirely different gameplay concept to Idle Heroes. Idle Heroes, you can play it aside. It doesn't really matter for Idle Heroes. If you play it and then you have like 5 minutes where you can't play it and you let your phone sit there, doesn't really matter. If you don't play fort defense for 5 seconds and you miss the point where you want to set like a warrior, those minions will run through, will destroy your base, and you're done. So there isn't really this slow pace that we're used from Idle Heroes, this more strategic thing, this thing where you get where you are not even in the game, and maybe like during your day you do something and then you realize, yeah, it would really be a great idea to use a crown on that MFF. Or it would really be a good idea to check out the defenses on the MFG, because that just lost life in the fight against Ragnar, and I wonder why that is the case, and we have to take a look at that. And this thinking is not part of it. Here, the main strategy, and that is like the next point already, the lack of strategies really. Well, we have to do it in real time, and we have to do the only strategy that exists. And let's get to the next point, which are like strategies, gameplay strategies. And there aren't a whole lot. And this is even worse. The only really viable strategy that we have at the moment is like focus on mages, because those are strong, those have AoEs. We have a bunch of those small enemies. They spam you with those two. Mainly this guy. This guy gets spammed in there. Those guys here are rare. They are very powerful when they are on the battlefield. Like this guy, my god. Killing this, like horrible. Doesn't have any skills. That's funny. Does he have skills? Yeah, he attacks with a powerful spear. But they are very powerful. They have a lot of life somehow, and you need a lot of power to go through them. Those guys have 60 life, but they spawn like 100 of them, which is absolutely insane. So you need a certain bit of AoE, which Priest provides. There's a great active skill that makes like a little circle on the ground, which is frost, and the enemies stay in that, and they get a bunch of damage, and it's really insane. It's a good unit to deal damage. And you use those, and use like 1 or 2 warriors, because warriors have 2000 HP, mages on the other hand 570, so they can take a few hits. You send them up to the enemy, they survive for a long time. Mages stand in the background, smash them, smite them with whatever skills they have at their disposal. And then you unlock the Transcendence hero, and as you will focus on mage, you get the best Transcendence hero that we have at the moment, which is Wraec. And why is Wraec the best Transcendence hero in the game? For a horrible reason. Decent stats, nothing too spectacular. That would not have made the difference. She has a passive skill. Not only does she heal, but she has a passive skill. Increases all allies' attack each time Vesa is recruited. And I don't think we have any other passive skill at the moment in this game. Doesn't have a passive skill. 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 It's the only hero with a passive skill. And it's a strong one. There are some strategies built around this passive skill. Because it increases all allies' attack, and attack, we don't have a lot of that. So getting more attack and being able to stack that in a way is an insane mechanic. And I can link you a guide that I saw on Reddit recently. It's for the trial game mode, and it describes the strategy, which is like the only real strategy for this game mode that I've seen. Where you use like this middle lane, where you summon a bunch of mages, and then you use those outward lanes. The enemies come from here and from here, and you use those 2 towers here to basically keep your base protected. And you summon mages here, and you always resummon Vesa here and here. So that she sometimes even dies. And she will die here at some times, and then you will stack up attack on those mages, and you will have real powerful mages at some point. You don't have to intentionally suicide Wraec, which doesn't work, of course, because she's very expensive, but you can stack up with skills with this passive. And this just doesn't work for any other Transcendence hero. And it's said that they rotate at one point. I think somewhere it was written that those Transcendence heroes indeed will be different at some point, which might be another story, as we can see. But for the moment now, we have one hero with a passive skill. It's obviously better and is connected to the mages, which are great. And then the whole gameplay loop, which is the next point, is horrible. It is the same on all maps. And when I say all maps, this is in itself a problem, because there are 2. There's this map, which has just 1 lane where enemies come from. You can just throw all of your minions in there. And then we have the other map that is, well, this one is in there for like 5 stages. And then we have the other one. It says already, oh, this one is in there for 4. The first one for 4 stages, the second one for 6 stages, because this is the map for the rest of the game. And you have 2 lanes here, which is insane. 2 lanes. So you have some heroes on the upper side, some heroes on the lower side. And the funny thing is, it is bad. It is already bad that this is like the pinnacle of gameplay here. Because those are not even really separated. Sometimes heroes from the top will fight at the bottom. Sometimes heroes from the bottom will fight at the top. You have no way of distinguishing or seeing where you have which amount of warriors and where they run. You can't even decide that. So your influence on the gameplay is really extremely limited. And it is limited to when you summon a hero and which hero you summon. So you can summon either Transcendence hero, if that is a possibility, or you usually summon a warrior or a mage. That is what you usually decide on. Mostly you summon a warrior, and then your only decision is where you summon it. Up one or lower one. But you can't decide if your hero that you summon on the upper lane then just runs straight to the lower lane, because one of the minions on the lower lane was just a little bit closer to attacking you than the ones on the upper lane. And then this can lead to some frustrating results if their enemies on the top just run through, because the minion you just summoned on top to block those off again then runs off to the bottom, which is horrible. And then some issues with enemies getting stuck, which I will say are bugs and will get fixed eventually. But yeah, that is horrible. And the gameplay loop that you experience is you set your mages and then you summon warriors. And if a warrior dies, you summon a warrior. And if another warrior dies, you summon a warrior. And if then a boss arrives, you summon a warrior. And if the boss kills that warrior, you can guess what you do now. You summon another warrior. And then there is the last boss, which is like the Shadow General, he's really good at killing enemies. And what you can do there is summon a warrior, and before he killed that one, you summon another warrior. And then you have to time it a little bit, right? Which is gameplay. Gamer here at work. I just want to say it. Gaming. You wait a little bit. Like a tiny friction of a second. And then you summon a warrior. Because in that time, he will do his active skill and kill all the enemies around him. But then your warrior wasn't in the range of this, but already spawned. Which means he will arrive at the Shadow General after he does his active skill very fast, so he blocks him off again. And then you can summon another warrior. And resummon some of the warriors that died just now. And this is like all the way you kill the Shadow General. And, well, that might have been funny in a way, hopefully. But it's really no fun to play. Because you do this for way too long. You start off with in the first stage, and then there's like a second stage, and I think like, hey, 5 waves, 8 waves, 10 waves, and then it's 15 waves, and it's 15 waves again. And then you've played this map. You have played this. And they just repeated 6 times. Higher stats, yes. But basically the same minor differences in enemy, I think. I wouldn't know. I didn't look at that. Because the biggest problem is you don't really react differently. You react differently to this guy. And this guy alone. To all the other guys, you can't really do a whole lot, can you? You summon your warriors, you summon your mages, and you hope they kill them. And if something dies, you resummon it. And you have a little bit of a strategy with upgrading, but that's about it. And this is really bad. And while I was just complaining about those guys missing skills because they don't really do a whole lot. They don't really have a role. This guy's blocking enemies, this guy's attacking enemies, which is just abysmal. And then we have 3 maps and all of them are basically playing the same. There's just the main difference that you have 3 spawn points on one, 2 spawns on the other, and 1 spawn point on the first one. Yeah, great. Not really a whole lot of interesting gameplay. And there are just better options. I would have preferred if DH made this a real tower defense game. And we can look at the tower defense game. Let's look at a tower defense game. So this is Arknights. It's a different game. It's a tower defense game. A hero-based tower defense game. Meaning you have your regular tower defense mechanics and then you have heroes instead of towers. And you upgrade your heroes before you go into the stage. You make yourself a plan. You think about the stage. You maybe take a look at the stage and then you go in there and then you fight the stage. Maybe you have to retry again after seeing the spawn waves, but you develop a strategy to fight that wave. And then you select your heroes that you prepared before, place them at the right positions, and maybe activate some skills during the time. The main part is done before you even enter the stage. Through observation of mechanics, through observation of hero skills, etc. Sounds a little bit closer to what I described Isle Heroes as, right? And the thing is, we just saw the skill sets of the heroes in Isle Heroes, in our RTS tower defense style game mode in Isle Heroes. Let's take a look at the skills that we have here. And I want to specifically point out not a very complex hero. We have complex heroes like Silver Ash that have vastly different mechanics, that have some form of specialization, that do a whole lot. And by the way, they look pretty cool. They have pretty cool skins. I can show you that. Some pretty good art style. I like that. It is rather nice. Pretty detailed. Always nice to have a look at other games. But I want to show you one specific hero. Because it is certainly appealing to have multiple heroes with different skills. Like it is in Isle Heroes, in the main game of Isle Heroes, where we do PvP and stuff. Where we have different heroes. Where suddenly one hero arises, where Panda arises and can be good. And this is like the same here. Only that we have tower defense as our main game point. And not as a side activity. Imagine how weird it was if they now just started and make like an Idle Heroes minigame, which is like, would have been insane. But this is Shaw. And Shaw is like a 4-star hero, which is not very spectacular. The game has 6-star heroes. He's not very insane if you look at him. And still this hero has a skill. And this skill is pushes the target towards the attack direction moderately in the next attack, dealing 124% of attack physical damage. And this has 2 parts. This is a very specialized skill. It pushes an enemy, But what can that do? So let's take a look at the map where this has an effect. So we go in here. There are those supply stages, they are called. And let's take a look at this map. This is the map that we are talking about. And you can basically set your heroes here. You have some elevated positions for ranged heroes. You have some ground position for melee heroes. The enemies spawn in those little red positions here. There are 3 spawns and they run around on those lanes in a fixed way. Can't run an enemy that is on this lane, won't jump to this lane or do some weird shenanigans that is weird or just unexpected. You have full control over what happens. You can see which hero will be attacked. You can position your heroes in a way that they face a certain direction, and we can see how that works. It's an auto deploy, so I don't really have to do a lot of stuff, which is nice. And don't get me wrong, auto deploy is not available until you've cleared that stage perfectly once. So that is not just a computer playing or something. That was just the setup that I used. And you can see I already knew where I wanted to place my heroes at the beginning because I thought about the strategy beforehand, as we said. And now Shaw will arrive in a second. There he is. He's facing downward. And you will see what his skill does on this map in a second. And this is 2 nice aspects. For one, we have map design. This is a map that somebody put a lot of thought in. Where do we need a ranged option? Is this lane long? How many attack time do we have? And they put a danger in here. And this danger is this middle spawn. And you can see the solution to it already. Shaw just pushed the one guy off into the abyss. And here in the middle, they spawn some very tanky enemies. They spawn some invisible enemies here that you have to cover up with an ability of this hero, for example, that can spot invisible heroes. And then you have some very insane heroes that spawn here. This is a very high level hero, invisible leader. And he gets covered up by the skill of this ranged hero and then pushed off the edge by Shaw. Which is a very weak hero, but just takes care for us here of all of those insane heroes. So we have the map design that has certain intricate parts like this ledge that you can use. If there was a wall here, we couldn't do it the same. Obviously, we had to find a different solution. But it is strategy. It involves different hero skills. Every hero has a role. And it doesn't just end up in this stupid gameplay loop of respawning warriors that I described. So this is like a real upside here. And I think a hero-based variant of Idle Heroes as a tower defense, maybe that could have worked. That would have been a gameplay design that I could have seen as interesting. Then again, probably a little bit too time-taking. It would have just taken them too long to really design such a game mode and then put it into the game. If you care, by the way, for Arknights, because this is just a short excursion into Arknights for this moment, it is a pretty cool game, has some pretty cool events. We can make a video about it at some point, because when they have an event, I usually check it out. Don't check it out quite often. It has some problems, the game, and don't want. But it is free-to-play friendly and has some cool events. So if you want me to show it a little bit and show you some of its features, we can definitely do that. But other than that, let's return to Idle Heroes and talk a little bit more about tower defense. So in conclusion, we have a game mode here that is just badly designed. The maps are uninspired, as we saw. There is no interaction of the heroes with the maps. We just have those, well, I mean, the design is not horrible, it is okay, but there is just nothing in this map happening. It is just an area, there could be nothing here, there could be no castle at all, and it would still be the same. To be perfectly honest, the design even creates problems with heroes getting stuck. The heroes are not very great. We saw that they have no skills, they don't interact with the map, they don't really interact with each other than the warrior obviously taking the role as the tank. The Transcendence heroes don't have a lot of skills, and really, also, at least the SFX and the S model don't really have a role at all, and most people don't even summon them. They are so bad, in fact, that even if you have the money, people don't even summon an S model in place of a warrior, because it is just not worth to spend the money. He's that bad. Which is kind of horrible if you think about it. And compared to other games, well, tower defense game, we could see that there are way better games. And this is really the final nail in the coffin for me, I would say. I have to just tell you this briefly. I first had this discovery about mini games, or my first contact with mini games in a game was in Warframe. Warframe is a third-person action RPG where you control like this robot Warframe from a third person that has insanely fast movement. It's a shooter game with abilities, fast pace. You have like different objectives, maybe to destroy or kill a certain amount of enemies, or to capture some objective in some way. And it is fast. It is super fast, in fact. And at one point, they released their first open world. And this open world included 2 minigames. And one was a mining minigame where you could mine for ores or gems in a certain part. And the other one was a fishing minigame. And in the first open world, I thought like, okay, this is kind of decent. First time it was decent fun, I would have, I say. And then they released 2 more open worlds over time. And in both open worlds, we had the fishing and the mining minigame. And you needed the fish and the resources you get from the fish and the gems and ores to craft weapons that they released with the open worlds. So in every single open world, you stood at some lake or in some cave and you were mining or fishing to get those resources. And you were really grinding. This was not like a 2-second thing, grinding for hours. And it was like some double resource weekend or something. It's a multiplayer game. And I was in some cave grinding resources from the newest open world. I thought to myself like, well, that's really not the point you started playing this game for. And that is really kind of the way I feel about this. I like Idle Heroes. I want to play Idle Heroes. That's why I go into Idle Heroes. I don't want to play some bad RTS. If this was a really good game that I wanted to play, then this would be a different story. And I would say, okay, that is a really good game. But it's a bad game mode that gets shoved in our face for whatever reason. I don't really get it. It offers good loot, but that doesn't make it a good game mode. And the less I see of this, the better. Because if I want to play a good tower defense style game mode, I go into Bloons TD5, I go into Arknights. There are a bunch of games that you can play if you want an RTS or if you want like a tower defense game. And those are just better. So I really don't get why the age felt the need to introduce that to the game. And I kind of want more Idle Heroes content. I want stuff like Void Campaign. I want, maybe give me Sealand 40 or something. I would be happy with that. Give me Sealand 40, put some new mechanics into that. Let me think about how I can beat that. But I don't really need Fantasy Arcade. And I don't want to badmouth anybody that enjoys it. Feel free to enjoy it. I just wanted to show you the reasons I don't. And that is not even the technical side. There is certainly a technical aspect here that is horrible. Like there are bugs of enemies getting stuck. There are bugs of buttons not reacting as they are intended to. Horrible small boxes that you have to click on and that are unexpectedly small if you want to go change the lane and some stuff. A lot of stuff I noticed. But just from the gameplay perspective, I really don't think it's good. In any way, guys, I hope you liked the video. I hope the little excursion into Arknights, something you enjoyed. I wish you guys a great day, and we'll see us in the next one.